Hey, what's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're taking a first look at the Lake Champlain Barlow, the second OEM knife coming from traditionalpocketknives.com, aka C. Risner Cutlery. Now, I got mine in the Sawcut Titanium with the Sheepsfoot blade, but this is actually available in 22 different configurations. Price point's the same on all of them, $199. Now, I ordered this the day it came out. It's 5 or 6 days later at the time of filming. And so a couple of those configurations have sold out, but most are still available. And so there were two titanium covers, the Sawcut, which you see in front of you, and a jig titanium more similar to what we see on this QSP Hedgehog, which was also a traditional pocket knives exclusive. And so two titanium. We also got 3 micarta options and 6 different camo carbon options. Now, if you're doing the math, you know that's only 11 variations, but each of those configurations came with 2 different blade shapes, the Sheepsfoot, which we see here, and that more standard clip point that you see on most Barlows. Now, most Barlows are 2-bladed, both of these are 1-bladed, so you got the clip point or the Sheepsfoot. I went with the Sheepsfoot mainly because we always see the clip point, and so I wanted a Barlow that was a little bit different. Don't have a single Barlow that has a Sheepsfoot, so figured why not grab that first. I do plan on grabbing that clip point down the line when I replenish my funds, so hopefully in a couple of weeks the configuration I want on the clip point is still available and I can grab that, but for now went with the Sheepsfoot. Now, as far as the handle goes, or the covers, they're not exactly covers because this is all one piece of titanium, but the other ones are. I went with the Sawcut because, well, it was a really hard choice, to be honest. I ended up narrowing it down to 2 or 3 options and then asking in the Discord group, Slipjoint Sanitarium, which is Slipjoint Sawyer's Discord group, for opinions. Eventually settled on this one, but the reason I did was mainly because I've never seen it done before. As far as I know, this is the first time we're seeing Sawcut Titanium, and I thought that was interesting. I thought that was cool. Now, I also really love modern slip joints, also love traditional slip joints, and so thought it was just kind of a nice nod or homage to that Sawcut bone that we see in traditional slip joints, and so seemed like the good first one to get. I will most likely, when I pick up the clip point, pick up a different cover option, but plenty of options available. And one thing I do want to note about this Sawcut Titanium is it has what I like to call a consistent inconsistency. And so that may sound weird. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. But what I mean by that is the line weight between these, the gaps between these lines is different in all of them. So some of them are bundled close together, you have wider gaps, and it's not perfect. And this is not done by hand. Obviously, this is titanium, these are machined, but it's gonna be like that on all of them. And so that's why I say consistent inconsistency, but it's purposeful and it really helps with the design. So another thing you'll look at is like where those lines end. If you look along the groove in the bolster, some of them are further away, some are closer, some of them don't reach the edges of the knife, and so that adds just like a level of interesting detail to it that you wouldn't get if everything was exactly the same. Now, the depth of the lines is basically identical. I haven't obviously measured them, but they look identical. But otherwise, if everything was consistent, I think it would look a little bit weird. And so I appreciate that even though this is machined and going to be very precise and identical on all of the different knives, I like that it's not, perfect. And so that was a very intentional choice. Definitely appreciate that about it. Now, first thing that I noticed when I got this out of the box is the size of it. Now, I saw the videos when he first put them out and I heard the dimensions. I knew just initially that this was going to be larger than a standard Barlow. Didn't realize how much larger. Once I decided I was going to purchase it, I stopped looking into it and really just kind of waited for the day that I could order mine. And so did want to show some for comparison. So this is the new case purple barn board jigged bone Barlow, and so this is a standard size Barlow, kind of the blueprint for Barlows. Not that Case came up with the blueprint, but any brand you get is going to be basically identical to this, is what I mean. And so you can see that's a good, probably about an inch shorter in that closed position, and so pretty significant difference, a little bit more than I was expecting, but really nice size. It was a pleasant surprise, to be sure. Now, I did want to compare it to a Granddaddy Barlow as well, because this is much closer to a Granddaddy Barlow than a regular Barlow. And so I have one from Remington here. And this is the Remington Granddaddy Barlow. You can see side by side. The difference isn't as significant as the Barlow to Lake Champlain as it is from the Lake Champlain to the Granddaddy. So closer to about a ½ inch difference in that closed position, but still a little bit smaller. And so I think it's a really nice size overall. We're looking at 4¼ inches in this closed position. Now I do want to show it next to them open, but we'll probably have to change the orientation of these a little bit because that Granddaddy Barlow is so large. But just gonna open the main blade on this one. Both the others are single bladed because that's the longer of the two, that clip point. So we'll set this kind of at an angle here and then get our Lake Champlain Barlow next to it. And you'll see that it gets a pretty big difference once we get that open kind of side by side. We're looking at close to about a 2-inch difference or so. And so it ends up being pretty significant how much longer that one is. Now, we'll get the Granddaddy Barlow in the mix, and this one again isn't quite as dramatic of a difference, but still a good inch or so, and I might have to back that up actually. We'll back it up so we can get everything in frame, but you can see it's a good probably 1 to 1.25 inches longer than our Lake Champlain Barlow, so pretty significant difference. Now, the width is kind of in between as well, so our Granddaddy Barlow, really thin knife, has a thinner blade stock, thinner handles, everything, but the original Barlow, even though it's somewhat shorter, is significantly thicker, and that's because we have 2 springs here, 2 blades that we're working with, and so it ends up being kind of in the middle, but nice thickness to it as well. That blade stock is 0.11 inches, so a little bit thicker than what we typically see on traditionals. And so one other thing I should point out before I put all these away actually is the bolster. And so this is kind of a mock bolster since we don't have any covers here. It's the same material above and below that groove line, but still the other cover options, this will be a more traditional bolster. And you can see that it makes up about 1/3 of that handle. And so that's kind of a rule of thumb with the standard Barlows. You can see on the case Barlow, it's about 1/3 of the total handle. And you know, if it's different, even if the rest of it is exactly the same, people will question whether that's still a Barlow pattern. In fact, I think Rosecraft released one that had a little bit of a shorter bolster, and people were saying, oh, that's not really a Barlow, and other people, of course, were saying it was. But in any case, he kept with that tradition here, and I really like that about it. Now, that's not necessarily a rule with Granddaddy Barlows. As we see over here on the Remington, that bolster is only about 1/4 of the length of the overall handle, and that's because it's a larger knife, and so the proportions are a little bit different, and so it does make sense that maybe that would be shorter, but I like that he kept that 1/3 rule in place. And so let's talk about the overall dimensions of this. 7.75 inches overall, which is a nice size. It's a larger knife in general, and for a slip joint, definitely a larger knife. As most of you know, if you watch my channel, I've mentioned it several times. I typically carry a locking knife in my main pocket. Usually 7 to 7.5 inches is that sweet spot for me. And so this is really in a similar kind of size class as that. And then I'll carry a traditional slip joint in my 5th pocket that's usually a decent bit smaller. In this case, I can carry this as my main blade and carry a small locking knife in my 5th pocket, which always makes for an interesting kind of dynamic and switch up. But this definitely feels like a user of a slip joint. It's solid, well-built, thick, large, just knife, and so built like a tank. And so definitely like that about it, that size. Even though it was a surprise to me, it was a pleasant surprise. Now in that closed position, that handle length is 4¼ inches, which gives us plenty of room for a nice full finger grip, no problem whatsoever. Extremely comfortable, no hot spots whatsoever. The ergonomics on this are perfect. The Sawcut Titanium also adds a level of grippiness to it, which I really like. Now you're going to get that with some of the other cover options like the micarta or the jig titanium. You'll get that as well. With the camo carbon, you might not. Now it doesn't feel like it's going to be, you know, a particularly slippery knife without that grippiness, but I do appreciate the extra grippiness there. So that's a nice thing. We have titanium handles here. The spring is a stainless steel torque screw construction instead of that pinned construction that you'll see on most traditionals. And so that spring you can see is perfectly flush in this open position, and that's true of all 3 positions. We get it into that half stop position, same thing, and of course into the closed position. Perfectly flush, still no gaps whatsoever. And that's kind of to be expected with these premium modern traditionals. You don't really see a lot or as much inconsistency as you do of some of the handmade traditional slip joints. And so of course that's because these are machined. It still can happen, but it's a lot rarer. And so the blade length on here, we have 3.5 inches. no matter which one you go with. Obviously this is a Sheepsfoot, but the clip point is 3.5 inches as well. M390 on the steel, so getting a nice premium steel that you wouldn't normally see on a slip joint. Also nice. The Sheepsfoot blade, nice kind of swedge at the tip, long pull here, 0.11 inches behind the spine, but a really nice hollow grind, so it gets nice and thin and slicey. Really similar geometry to the QSP Hedgehog, actually. It has that same similar hollow grind and feels very similar to that. So nice and slicey edge, also comes really sharp out of the box, really nice there. And that long pull works really well. You can use that as a nail nick if you choose to. I don't. It pinch grips really nicely. And so really easy to pinch grip that. Don't need to use your nails and destroy your nails on that. And so like that about it. Now the pull he rates as a 7. I don't really do the numbering system just because I feel like I don't have as much experience. This is probably not as true anymore as I've built up my collection, but I always just say medium, medium heavy, heavy. And so he does rate the knives on his site. And so this is a 7. He says Jack Wolf knives are an 8, and that definitely tracks for me. It feels right. Jack Wolf knives have a very heavy pull, and to be honest, I prefer that a little bit. I like the Jack Wolf knife pull better than this pull, but not everyone will. And so I think that 7 is a more universal pull. It's still heavy, but it's not intimidating heavy, especially for someone who's like new to slip joints. That heavy pull might be a little bit more intimidating. And then also just people that are into traditionals that aren't as into heavy pulls. This still has a heavy pull, but it's a medium heavy. It's on the lighter side compared to those Jack Wolf knives. So that might be preferable for a lot of people. For me, I do prefer the Jack Wolf just a little bit more, but this one feels excellent. One other thing I appreciate about the pull on this one is that it's very consistent from closed to half stop. Feels identical to from half stop to fully open. And so those feel like kind of the same exact level of pull there. So I like that about it. Walk and talk, you've probably heard, but I'll stop and let that kind of be the star. Sounds excellent, really great sounds on this. Really overall excellent fit and finish, excellent walk and talk. Really happy with kind of everything about that. Weight wise, 3.3 ounces, so nice weight for the size of this knife. It's a larger knife, but not too heavy. Now, I don't have a slip that really fits this very well, so I'm gonna have to order one. I saw Jersey Knife Guy's video. He just put one up, I think yesterday, and he ordered, I think, the extra large slip from Traditional Pocket Knives. So I'll probably go that same route. When I order the clip point, I'll order a couple slips for these because it looked like it fit pretty well. Definitely check out his video if you want to see how that fits. But really happy with this knife overall. One other comparison I did want to make is the original OEM knife from Traditional Pocket Knives, and that's the Ohio Riverjack. And so I ordered this one pretty late to the game and had kind of an opposite experience. I didn't look into it that much either, and it was smaller than I expected, and so also not necessarily a bad thing, but smaller than expected. And this is kind of what I was expecting this Lake Champlain Barlow to be, a little bit bigger than a Barlow, but more similar to this size. And you can see this one's significantly smaller than that Lake Champlain Barlow, a good inch and maybe inch and a quarter or so overall. And so that was kind of a fun surprise too. Now, I haven't done a video on this one or any of the knives that you've seen in this video. I haven't done their videos on. I'm really far behind. I will get to them, but did think that would be a fun comparison to make as well. Obviously, I didn't get the titanium version of this. There are a couple of these micarta versions as well. None of the multi-bladed versions or titanium versions are available, but there are some micarta if you want to grab that. Now, one other thing on that pricing, Traditional Pocket Knives has a really cool reward program, and I order my Rosecraft blades and my Jack Wolf knife blades when I'm buying them. Obviously, he's sending some of those over now as well. But when I do order them, I order them through traditionalpocketknives.com because he has free shipping over $100. His loyalty program is really good, and what you pay is the price that it ends up being, no taxes or anything like that. And so really like Traditional Pocket Knives. And so I had rewards to get this for more than the discount codes, but there are discount codes. Now, I'm not affiliated with Traditional Pocket Knives in any way, and so I don't have a coupon code, but if you check out some of the other channels that put out videos before this dropped, like Big Red EDC, Duties Daggers, Knives Fast, Lefty EDC, I'm sure there's some that I'm forgetting, they all have coupon code. So if you are going to order this and you're not already a part of their loyalty program where you can get a bigger discount than that $5. You can save $5 with their coupon codes. I wish I would have written one down so I could mention it here, but just go check out their videos, you know, obviously support them as well and save yourself some money. Definitely use the coupon code if you're going to pick one of these up. Now, last thing I wanted to show, well, there's two things really. One is the just kind of unboxing experience. So we already saw the box. Inside of here is your typical QSP box with slide out drawer, brown box. Nothing too interesting. He does wrap it in his own box, which I think is a little bit better looking. We have the Lake Champlain Barlow. Really cool, his traditional pocket knives logo with that USS Lake Champlain carrier on there. And then it tells you which variation you got and some of the socials. Also has an image of the actual carrier, which I think is really cool. So in addition to that, anytime you order from Traditional Pocket Knives, he's really good about throwing in the swags. You get a ton of stickers. And so you get your kind of usual accoutrements of stickers. And this really cool Happy Halloween one, got that with my Rosecraft second as well. So that's my second one, but some really cool standardized stickers. But when you order this knife, he also throws in some extras that you don't get with your normal order. And the first one is kind of to be expected. It's the logo that we saw on the box. So really nice addition to that. Love the colors on this one. And obviously the imagery is really cool as well. So like that sticker quite a bit. And then this isn't exclusive to the knife, but something that seems to only get thrown in with these orders. Like when I got my second, I didn't get one of these, but everyone who I've seen unboxing the Lake Champlain Barlow got this patch, which is really cool. It's probably about 2.5 inches in diameter, glows in the dark, and they sell for around 10 bucks. I think I've seen them on sale for about $5, but usually around 10 bucks. So a really nice freebie to get with the knife. And it, like I said, seems like he's throwing those in with the Lake Champlain order specifically. So nice extra swag. Now, if you're familiar with them, you also usually get like ad postcards similar to what we get in SMKW. And this one had one extra, which is this USS Lake Champlain CV39 kind of postcard style card. And so it has some extra information about that carrier that you can read up here in the corner. I'm not going to read either side of this, but you can pause and read it. Did want to show it at least. So really cool to see that original image of that. And then if we flip it over, a lot of information about his grandfather, Clarence Risner, the life he lived, you know, raising the family, his experience on board the aircraft carrier and him serving there, and how it served as an inspiration to Austin to join the military later in life. Obviously, there's a lot of similarities between them, and you can tell that not only was he, you know, an inspiration to him, but he really kind of shaped the direction that I think Austin took with his life. So he joined the military, he took over C. Risner Cutler, traditionalpocketknives.com, and he designed knives. And so that's what I wanted to show, something that's not really mentioned there, but I picked this up recently, and this is the C. Risner Indian Head Stockman. And so this was a collaboration between his grandfather, Clarence Risner, and Buck Creek Knives. And so, really cool knife. Haven't done a video on this, I will. Probably from around 1990 or so, I think. And has acrylic covers, really cool Indian head shield. That's my favorite part about it. It looks really excellent. And if we get this open, there are 3 blades. I'm only gonna open one for now, but you can see that Indian head handmade in Germany. And so these are Solingen, Germany made. The tang stamp is also a really cool touch. So you have that C. Risner, 2 Indian heads, and then the word Indian head. So just a really cool knife. And I thought it was cool, you know, it adds to the overall history of this Lake Champlain Barlow for me, just kind of knowing how much of an impact that he had on his life, from joining the military to running a knife and cutlery store and eventually designing his own knives. And I think that's really cool. So overall, super happy with this so far. I will do a more long-term review down the line, but just kind of wanted to do this initial one while it's still in stock. I'm really happy with this. Definitely going to be ordering the clip point version pretty soon here, but would love to know your thoughts on this knife down in the comments below. If you picked one up, which one you went with. There were obviously a ton of choices, and I've kind of narrowed it down in terms of what I want to pick up for the clip point version, but we'll see how that goes. It may be that the ones I want end up selling out and I have to choose something else, but luckily there are a ton of great options. But thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed the video, definitely consider liking, commenting, subscribing, hitting the notification button, all of those things that help out the channel a ton. It is greatly appreciated, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.